Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 bringing to you yet another awesome yet crazy theory, and just as I mentioned at the end of the last video that I did, which was called my theory on how I would bring the Spider-Verse into the MCU for the third installment of Spider-Man, this is going to be a follow-up video to that theory, and it's going to be my theory on how I would bring Venom into the MCU to set up a confrontation with Spider-Man for a possible fourth installment. Ever since making his debut in 1988 in Amazing Spider-Man issue 300, and for the past 32 years now, Venom is considered to be one of the most important and iconic characters in the history of Marvel Comics. He is one of the few characters who knows that Spider-Man and Peter Parker are one in the same, and in my opinion, that makes Venom one of the most dangerous people that Spider-Man has ever encountered. And in my opinion, Venom is one of the greatest Spider-Man villains of all time, and they have battled each other in comic books, which, as I said earlier, has endured on and off for the past 32 years. They have battled each other in animation, which I consider the 90s to be the peak, and of course they have battled in live action back in 2007, which is mostly forgettable, and of course they have battled each other in video games. You name it, Spider-Man and Venom have battled each other in every form of media you can imagine, and ever since 2018 we have seen the return of Venom to the big screen, and he starred in his own solo movie, which was produced by Sony Studios and featured Tom Hardy in the lead role of Venom/Eddie Brock, and in my opinion I thought the film was absolutely fantastic, and it was great to see Venom back to his dark and twisted and sinister best, and Tom Hardy I thought did an excellent job. And Spider-Man has also returned to the big screen with a vengeance, and he is played by Tom Holland, and he has starred in several MCU movies, including 2 solo movies under his name, which were Spider-Man Homecoming and just recently Spider-Man Far From Home, and he has appeared in 3 other MCU movies such as Captain America Civil War, where he made his MCU debut, and just recently he appeared in 2 Avengers movies back to back, which were Avengers Infinity War in 2018 and in Avengers Endgame back in 2019. Now, Spider-Man in the MCU has had 5 appearances so far, but the big question has to be asked is, why haven't we seen the MCU Spider-Man interact with Sony's Venom yet? Now, it probably has a lot to do with rights and contractual reasons, because Spider-Man and Venom have mostly been kept separate. Venom is in the Sony franchise, and Spider-Man is of course in the MCU franchise through a deal with Sony. Now, in my opinion, I think it would be really cool for the 4th installment of Spider-Man if Sony and Marvel Studios come to some sort of agreement where we would actually see Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Tom Hardy's Venom actually interact with each other. And this is where my theory would come into play, because I think for the 4th Spider-Man movie, depending on what happens, I think Venom should be the main villain. Now, this is where my theory will come into play. I would have, for an after credits scene, we would see Spider-Man say goodbye to all the other versions of Spider-Man as they return to their respective Earths, and with all of the members of the Sinister Six return to their respective timelines. We would see Doctor Strange say goodbye to Peter Parker, just as I mentioned at the end of the last video, but just as Doctor Strange is stepping through the portal and is ready to leave, we would see a black ooze slowly spill out of the portal just as it closes, and we would hear a very sinister voice say, this looks like a good spot for us. I think we're going to like it here. And we see that it is of course Venom from another Earth. And the last thing we can hear him say is, we must find the other one and destroy him at once. And that would set up for the 4th installment of Spider-Man. Now, the big question is, how do you get Spider-Man and Venom to meet each other? I would have Venom has known about Spider-Man's existence for a long time, and the reason why he is here on this Earth is because he is looking for Carnage, who has also managed to escape from him during their last confrontation. and somehow, someway, Carnage has managed to find an escape route through the portal and is here on our Earth trying to hide from Venom. Now, this doesn't mean that Carnage is going to be the main villain for the 4th installment of Spider-Man. I will just have Carnage in a cameo, which could probably lead to maybe a 5th film where Venom and Spider-Man would have to reluctantly work together, just like they did in the 90s cartoon, to defeat Carnage. So what I would have for the 4th installment is Peter Parker is back on the streets as Spider-Man, minding his own business, and this is basically continuing on from the end of the 3rd Spider-Man film, where he had his name cleared after being framed for the murder of Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. And then I would have Peter Parker bump into Eddie Brock in the store, and obviously Eddie Brock, as we all know, has a huge chip on his shoulder, but he doesn't fully understand that he's not on his Earth anymore, and he looks at Peter and says, "Wait a minute, I know you. You're the guy who was in the news, wasn't you?" And Peter says, "Nope, that's not me. I don't know who you're talking about, but you clearly got the wrong guy." And Eddie could say back to Peter, Yeah. You're him, aren't you? You're the guy who's wears the costume." He said, "No, that's not me. Listen, I don't know who you are." "Brock," says Eddie. He goes, "Eddie Brock." He goes, "Okay, Eddie Brock," says Peter, "but listen, whoever you're talking about is not me, you know. So you're not the guy who's in court, was you?" "What? Yeah, I was, but it was just all a misunderstanding. It was just a mistake." And Eddie Brock could be like, "Sure. So you're not Spider-Man then?" And Peter says, "God, no. No, I'm not Spider-Man at all." "Okay." And then Peter could hear police sirens going off. And he said, "Listen, I'd love to stay and chat, but I've just remembered I've got to pick up something for my aunt." And Eddie could be like, "Your aunt, yeah?" And Peter goes, "Yeah, my Aunt May, she's cool. She forgets things, and she's forgotten that I'm supposed to be meeting her, and I better go right now." And Eddie Brock could be like, "Yeah, you do that, Spider-Man." And then Peter could be leaving, and then we would see Peter put in his Spider-Man costume swinging, and that's where he is attacked from behind by Venom, and Peter could be screaming for his life by saying to Venom that, "Listen, I don't know who you are, but I'm not the guy you're looking for." And Venom could say, "Yes, you are. You might have been able to fool Eddie Brock, but you would not fool us. We are Venom, and we are everything that you are not. Bigger, stronger, and most important of all, better than you." And Spider-Man says, "Listen, I think there's been a mistake here. Just let me go and we can talk this out." And Venom says, "We're not interested in what you have to say. We will ask the questions and you will give us the answers. The last thing we remember is we were fighting our other half, and there was this bright light, and yet here we are, and here you are too. So tell us what we know, and we might, just might, let you go." And Spider-Man says, Okay, what do you want to know? Are you the other half, known as the symbiote, Carnage? And Spider-Man could say, "Carnage? I don't even know who that is." And Venom could say, "Wrong answer." And then he continues beating the crap out of Spider-Man. It says, okay, whoever this Carnage is," says Spider-Man, "I don't know who he is, but maybe I can help you find him. Just tell me exactly who you are." "Oh, please, you don't remember who we are? We only just spoke to you earlier, didn't we, boy?" And that's when Venom could show his face to Spider-Man, and he reveals himself to be Eddie Brock, the same guy he was talking to in the store earlier. So what I would have for the 4th Spider-Man film is Venom, for most of the movie, is causing chaos and trouble all throughout the city, trying to look for Carnage, and Spider-Man is the only one who can stop him. And after a hard-fought battle, Spider-Man turns around to Venom and says, "Listen, I know you don't think much of me, but I think if you and I can work together, maybe we can find this Carnage person you're looking for." And that could possibly set up for a fifth Spider-Man film where Venom and Spider-Man are working together to try and stop Carnage once and for all. But in the meantime, Venom is stuck here on this Earth and he doesn't know how to find his way back home. And that's pretty much my theory on how I would bring Venom into the MCU for a Spider-Man confrontation. Now, obviously, I could have taken inspiration from the comic books, but you don't really want to feel like you're repeating yourselves, so I thought I'd come up with something a little bit more different as opposed to something that's been done already. But who knows really, maybe we might see Venom show up in an MCU movie one day, depending on what Sony and Marvel decide to do. But I think for a fifth Spider-Man film, if we get that, I definitely think they should make Carnage the main villain, and for the fourth one they should definitely make Venom the main villain. But that's just my thoughts and theories. So I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your thoughts on the possibility of Venom coming into the MCU? Is that something you would like to see? And if so, how would you bring him in? Would you bring him in from another Earth like I've just mentioned? Or would you have him here already on this Earth, but just operating in a different city? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time. So until then, take care everybody, and stay safe.